Hello, this is Jerry,
And Jacob,
and we're
we are two unrelated
two
brothers.
unrelated brothers.
Mm, little by little, we're getting there.
Yes, little by little.
We did practice. We did, believe
We
it or
did.
not.
Yeah, yeah. It's a little bit harder, I guess. Like I said, last episode because we're so,
we're
we're
not. We don't see each other.
yes, we're not in the same room. So, man, what are we going to be talking about today?
Well, a couple episodes ago, we talked about one of our favorite games ever, Dead Space, and well, we decided that hey, it's still October, and like I said, especially with the announcement of the remake, let's do Dead Space 2. And so that's what we're going to talk about today.
All right. And so for preparation for this, I know I watched some compilations of like the scariest parts, and actually, I don't know if you remember this, but the multiplayer, I watched a couple of multiplayer reviews.
Right.
What did you really do for your research?
Well, since I have a broken foot and I have a lot of free time right now, I was able to play it on Steam. I was able to play the whole thing and then play a little bit of it up to chapter 4 about in the second playthrough. So naturally, I guess I'm going to have more of the more detailed review since it's fresh in my memory.
So with that being said, you played it on PC this time.
Mm-hmm.
How different of an experience, either visually or in any other manner, was it compared to your PS3 playthrough? If you can remember, I know it was so long ago.
Yeah. I was gonna say, yeah, bro, we're pretty old. That was like 10 years ago for us.
Yeah.
I don't think it's fair to compare the graphics because, like I said, 10 years ago on the PS3, I mean, at the time, obviously, it looked beautiful. Now, it still looks good. You can tell it's an old game, but it looks crisp and it's still smooth to play. Obviously, it's different on the PC. Like I said, I mentioned before, I have a decent PC. It's not like I have like these crazy ass EMBs and it looks like, GTA 5 or nothing, but even then I still think it handles well, controls well, and it still looks good given its age. The first one looked good. The second one, it looks even better. Not to give too much away, but I had a blast playing it still.
Okay, so I guess we'll just open it up from the start, like especially now that both of them are really fresh in your mind. Mm-hmm. Do you think Dead Space 2 they honed in on some of your favorite parts of Dead Space 1, or which one do you think's really better?
Yeah, having played both of them, with Dead Space 1, I mentioned it lived up to my memory. It was good, not
mm-hmm.
It wasn't perfect by no means, but it was still very good. I had a blast playing it, but there were times where I just felt like, oh my god, get this over with, or
mm-hmm.
I felt like it kind of dragged a bit, and like I said, I still give it a 9 out of 10. Very fantastic game, but there were times I just felt like, oh my god, I just want this to be done. This one, no issues like that. I wanted more, which is a sign of a good game. It took me about 9 hours to beat. I think it was just paced better than the first one. And, gun to my head, if I had to give a rating to this one out of 10, I say 9.5, maybe even a 10 out of 10. I'd give
really?
This, yeah,
10 out of 10.
The only reason I'm hesitant to give like a 10 out of 10 is because I feel like that's reserved for, iconic games. So something like God of War 3, The Last of Us, Super Mario 64, like games that are like even like 20 years down the line, people will talk about it. That's what I think of 10 out of 10 it is. So
we're kind of halfway there though.
Yeah, I'm hesitant to give it a 10 out of 10, but like now, but when it released, I can understand why it was a tad bit lower than what I would give it now, and we'll talk about that in a bit.
Okay, cool. So
from what you can gather, from what you remember, since like you said, it was more of like videos, like the iconic moments. What do you remember from Dead Space 2?
So obviously, I remember getting it midnight release. I had school the next day.
Yeah.
Yes, I had school the next day, and I remember going up to GameStop at midnight, getting it, bringing it home, and then immediately wanting to try the multiplayer, right? Because I mean that seems like a cool idea. Um, so I went to go plug in the code, and it didn't work. So then I had to get on with EA customer service for like another hour, and then like figure out how to take a picture of the code to the lady to prove that I wasn't lying. And then I did that, and then she gave me a new code, and that one worked. And playing that for like 30 minutes, and it was the online. So I was really excited for the online, but it was a miss for me. Really, I understand it was like it was purposefully unbalanced.
Right.
I totally get that, but it just, I don't know. I guess I wasn't a big fan of that solid gameplay. So I played a match or two of that, and surprisingly, there was like a lot of, I think like Japanese or something like that, people playing online. So it's just this.
It was really popular in like with the foreign market.
Yeah. So I had no. I mean that.
Well, for us, we're North American. Spoiler alert.
Yeah. So I don't know. That might have like. Because you're trying to talk to people and see what's going on and really how to play, and there was just no chance of even doing that.
Right.
So, and then then I hopped on and I played the first couple of missions of the campaign, and I was up till about maybe 3:30 in the morning, and yeah, that opening scene of when you're in the kind of the padded cell and that guy just jumps in and. Next thing you know, his face is falling off. Like that's really the most memorable moment for me.
Yeah, the intro is great, and for involving this, but not exactly the game itself. I remember we were in high school at the time, and you would pick me up at my house, and we would go to school together. We were with a friend, and you know exactly where I'm going with this. Yes, you were with a friend, and you parked in front of my driveway. I walked out. So just to give some kind of, I guess, visualization to this, you were driving. Our friend was in the front passenger seat. Back passenger seats are empty. You have a PT Cruiser, and
yes,
I opened the door on the passenger side on the back, and I have about a foot in. So I have a foot in. My right foot is still out, and then you begin to drive, and I just started freaking out like, Jerry, what the fuck? I'm still getting in. I'm not ready yet. You brake, thank God. Nothing happens. No one gets hurt. But you just turn around and just go, oh shit, dude, I'm sorry. Like you're fucking baked. But it's just because, like you said, you stayed up last night getting Dead Space 2 and you were just exhausted.
Yes.
Yeah, I was like, damn, dude, like you almost killed me.
Oh my God. Yeah, dude, that was a fun time, man. That whole entire day just was a blur.
Don't get me wrong. Obviously, now it's fun to me. It's funny to look back on. Like at the time, like, damn, dude, you was fucking. I'm gonna break my leg. Which, now it's like, oh, here I am. But
yeah, it just took a couple years to finish up.
Yeah, no, it was super fun. So like, based on your memory, before we did any research on this, before we looked up videos, what where obviously we don't like doing like hard numbers on it, but like, how would you rate it?
Man, I would rate it up there with like a 9 to a 9.5.
Okay, so like similar.
Yeah, pretty similar. To me, this is my favorite one in the series. I feel like I'm pretty sure we've already mentioned this multiple times, but as the series went on, it went from like scary, and then the second one had like scary with some good action, and then the third one went like Michael Bay, with some cool aspects. So I feel like the second one is just that perfect mixture of action and suspense, horror, just all of it.
Yeah, no, I pretty much agree with that. And before I get into it, we're gonna talk about like very similar to the first game. I'll talk about the history behind the development, initial reception, then go into the nitty gritty of the game. But before all that, in case any listeners out there couldn't tell, broken foot. I am on multiple meds right now, but we're both off, so we have to take advantage of this.
Yes.
If I sound a bit off, if I'm stuttering or I'm like my speech is a bit slurry. Is that the word?
Yeah, a little slurred. Yeah.
Yeah, slurred. Then I apologize. I'm doing my best here. But the game is fresh. I just beat it yesterday, so I feel like no matter what, this is the best time to talk about it. So apologies in advance, but I feel like I'm doing a decent job keeping it together.
No, man, you're doing great to me, man. I to be honest, if you wouldn't have said anything, I wouldn't have noticed. I mean, I knew because
Right,
but,
I told you.
Yeah, but no, I think you're doing great.
Yeah, just want to get it out there. Like I feel like eventually it will happen. Like there will be something where like this doesn't sound right, but now you know. So right before we jump into it, I guess you ready to get into the actual game?
Hell yeah, dude, let's do it.
All right, awesome. And again, another thing is, real quick, this is mostly gonna be about Dead Space 2, but think of it as the epilogue will be about Dead Space 3, kind of like more of the franchise as a whole, as like kind of like the last chapter of this podcast, because we have played a little bit of the third game. Mm-hmm. We'll finish it eventually, but it won't be in a timely manner where we can like kind of release these all in a certain time frame. So it's better just to kind of like do a quick summary of it, you know?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
All right. So, having played it, I loaded it up. It does a quick little recap of the first Dead Space, which I appreciate. It was a nice little recap. And like we said, the opening, phenomenal. You wake up in an insane asylum. Well, before that, little cutscene plays. They talk to you about what you saw. You can already tell Isaac is not all there, and the biggest thing is he talks this time. He is not a silent protagonist.
Yeah.
Did you like that at the time?
Yes, I liked it a lot more. That he had a lot more personality this time. Yeah, I think that's another reason why I kind of enjoyed it a little bit more than the first game. Like I said, like he was just almost completely silent during that first game. I don't think I would have stopped screaming the entire time if that was me.
It was all like what's the word? Like primal noises, like the screaming and the grunts and stuff. That's all he really did in the first one.
Yeah, pretty much. Like whenever he was doing that curb stomp, yeah. Yeah.
So you wake up in the insane asylum. Someone's trying to save you. He gets turned to a necromorph in front of your eyes. Not only in front of your eyes, but he's like holding you while it's happening. So like, and it's pretty. We knew it happened fast at the time, but having it happen in front of your eyes, and not only your eyes but Isaac's eyes, in a span of 5 seconds, this man goes from like totally normal human being to like this violent creature that just wants nothing but your blood spilled on the ground. It's insane.
Not only that, but then the aftermath of you having to get away in a fucking straitjacket. Yes, that's horrifying. That's a horrifying thought.
Yeah, you can't fight. You have to run, and it's all instinct. Like these necromorphs come out from the corners or these different rooms, and it's basically, like I said, all instinct. You have to like, okay, they're coming from the right, I gotta go left. They're coming from here, I gotta go the other way. And if you guess wrong, you're probably gonna die.
Yeah.
So it was it was horrifying. I mean, but awesome at once. And one of the positive things at the time that was at its reception was, a lot of people mentioned the opening was fantastic. And before we get further into that, like I said, real quick before this, first game came out 2008. Dead Space 2 came out 2011. Dead Space Extraction, a rail shooter game, came out on the PS3 and the Wii, came out 2009. And then Dead Space Ignition, a puzzle game, came out in 2010. Those kind of helped, I won't say help bridge the gap, but those were like, I guess, those came out to kind of like quench our thirst for Dead Space.
So I actually played all of those, and I thought they were all pretty fun. Even the Wii on the rail shooters, even the puzzle game, they were fun. They were just, it was a fun time, especially the on the rails game. I mean, who doesn't like having control of a plasma cutter?
Oh yeah, definitely. And looking back on it, the Death Space Extraction, the rail shooter, it was more heavily favored on the Wii, given its controls, obviously. That was favored pretty well, but Ignition actually was pretty. It was shit on kind of at the time. People didn't like the gameplay, and it was more of like the art style too. People didn't like the art style of the game.
Really?
I guess it was too simple. Like, it was kind of like lazy.
So
People thought that was more filler. Like, Extraction had some substance to it, but Ignition was more just like, we need something at the time,
yeah, but I mean, I still enjoyed it, like, because there is some kind of tinkering with like security systems in the actual game. I mean, it's not like that, but I feel like it, I mean, it was just something that kind of killed time.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't like a full-fledged kind of thing. And I recently, I mean, because I have that PSVR.
Yeah.
So come to find out, I had to buy another pair of Move controllers. I actually bought another pair of Move controllers to play Extraction.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was fun, and it's fun playing it with the Move controllers instead of the controller. I mean, I guess I could see the Wii definitely being the preferred way to play.
Like I said, like, Extraction most people like that. It was Ignition that people were like meh on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Dead Space 2. So Dead Space 2 released on January 25th, 2011, North America. I don't care about other countries because, hey, I'm not there. So at the time of this recording, almost 11 years old.
Yeah.
I know. So obviously one of the biggest things we talked about in the first episode was it didn't sell well. It sold 1 million copies, which is not bad, but especially with EA, that's that's a disappointment. Well, this one sold 2 million copies in its first week of release. And guess what?
What's that?
Still disappointing to EA.
What is, and see, I feel like the first Dead Space had like a really big, I mean, because it was a new intellectual property. Like,
yeah. That was risky.
Yeah, I mean, especially nowadays, I feel like IPs are coming out less and less, whereas the PS2 era, I guess because maybe it was so cheap to produce a game, I mean, they're coming out left and right.
Yeah.
But, even in that time period, it was, IPs were a risk. And I feel like that one paid off. I mean, it was a great series. It was a fun game.
It was.
And then the media that spun off of that too. Sorry.
No, yeah, like you said, like for like those next 3 or 4 years, it was just like a Dead Space fucking extravaganza.
It was great. I enjoyed the story and the lore and the whole sci-fi kind of theme with it. It was all a fun time.
Yeah, so like it's just so funny to see like it doubled its sales of the first game in its entirety in the first week, but EA was still disappointed by it. But there's a little reason for that. And before we get to that next part, in total it sold around 4 million copies.
That's fine. That's good.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
But its budget was pretty high. Like this budget, like I said, I'm reading it. Even for the first game, if this budget was released like today, it's like, oh, par for the course. So 10 years ago, this is insane. So a former developer went out on record after Visceral Games was closed. Spoiler alert. He said something like, "Oh, it was 60 million for the development and about the same for marketing. So like 120 million, the total budget. That is a lot, especially for a game back then."
Yeah.
He later retweeted some things like, "Okay, I'm a developer. I'm not a businessman. So it's closer to like 47 million each." So
47 million.
That's what I'm saying. So regardless, it's a $94 million budget minimum to 120 million maximum. That's a huge budget.
Yeah, that is.
So if anyone's wondering too, like you think, oh, it sold 4 million, so like $60 a copy. That's 240 million. So even like, let's just say they took all of that money. That's 240 million.
Mm-hmm.
And worst case scenario, let's say the budget was 120 million. That's a profit of 120 million. That's good, but as we know, that's not how it works with these copies. You have to give out distribution. Not only that, but like to Sony, to Microsoft.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, at this time too, GameStop, all these other fees you have to pay, it's more close to like you may take up to half of what you sell for a new copy, not used.
Right. That's.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Especially at this time too, used copies were huge. Nowadays,
yeah.
like new, once in a while, like it's still popular to buy a used game, but digital I feel is like the new thing to do. Which the publisher still gets a cut of that, but once you buy a used, that's all to the store you buy it from.
Yeah, it's like buying it from a friend or something who
Exactly
wants to screw you over.
exactly. So really, in the end, it probably barely broke even or raked in a little bit of money, all things considered.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, that's sad, but I feel like horror is just a genre that's kind of underappreciated. I mean, because it's definitely something that not everybody can get into. I mean, some people have legitimate panic attacks playing a scary game,
Oh yeah, and the thing too is that in the first game, not common, but I guess not an unheard of complaint was that it was so scary people wouldn't play it, and obviously with a game that's you don't want that. You want people to play it the whole way through. So EA told the studio Visceral, hey, make this open up the audience a bit, make it a little more I guess what's the word? Open, just appeal to a broader audience, which is why it went into the more action oriented. The best way to describe it, and I'm glad I'm not the only one who thought of this. Someone else brought this up. It is the Aliens to Alien. For those you don't know, obviously Ridley Scott Alien. That's a straight up sci-fi horror game, horror movie. Aliens is the action movie to that, and I feel like that's a great with horror elements, and that is a perfect way to describe Dead Space 2.
Right, and I know I know we mentioned the marketing campaign in the Dead Space episode.
That's my next note.
Okay, so do you think that was really to the detriment of the? I mean, because I feel like adults can look at that and be like, oh, even though it looks like it's oddly aimed towards kids, it's like some kind of taboo title.
Looking at it, for those of you who don't know, they released a campaign, and its main thing was your mom hates Dead Space 2. They got like about 200 women, from what I can tell, that older women, moms basically from their 50s or 60s, who had no background with gaming. They showed them footage of Dead Space 2, and they were just basically like, they're boomers. Like, this is horrible. This is disgusting. I would never let my kids play this. And I remember very clearly, like, at the end, your mom's going to hate this game. So it's like, oh, well, I'm going to play it then. Because if my mom hates it, then it's probably cool.
Yeah.
And as an adult, I see the issues with this campaign. But at the time, in the moment, 16, 17-year-old Jacob loved these commercials.
Yeah, who doesn't love people screaming in horror? It's it's something you think is great.
And my mom is a super like religious, conservative woman. So like, and she doesn't speak English, but that's literally the only thing that kept her from being in that commercial. I feel like if she spoke English, she would 100% have been in that commercial and fit in perfectly.
Yeah, I remember her. I think you told me a story about her looking at the Batman, not the Arkham Asylum, but the game that the case is with the white Batman, like white background, except for the little red blood. And she talked about how it would look beautiful except for the blood, something like that.
Yeah, exactly. Like she saw something like that and was like, "Oh, this is lovely, but I hate the blood." That's how conservative she is. Like, if it doesn't involve Jesus, it's a waste of time for her. Well, how did you feel like your mom was kind of? Your mom's obviously not as hardcore as that, but I feel like you kind of related to that. I feel in a way.
Yeah, I did. I mean, my mom's not really interested in games, and
Leela,
she's always been pretty lenient with us. Playing or watching like rated R or shit. Like we ever since I remember playing Grand Theft Auto 3 at like 6. I mean, she did have a sit down, but that was like pretty much the only video game sit down she did have with me about, hey, this isn't, basically just telling me it's a video game, shit like that.
This isn't real.
Yeah. So other than that, I mean, as long as it didn't really say it had like strong guess maybe nudity or something. To be honest, I don't even think she looked at that and really cared, because I did have Grand Theft Auto 4 and all of the DLC for that. So I really don't think she cared, but it did resonate with me because I knew how most parents are, you know. And I had personal experience with your mom. Great woman.
Yeah, of course, lovely woman, but
lovely, yeah.
Goddamn.
Yeah, for sure.
No, and especially like I said, nowadays, you know, a lot of millennials are parents now, so it's not as much as a meme. But back then, you know, games were still trying to find its footing as, you know, an art form. So I guess now you can see it as like kind of cringy, but back then it was like a rebel thing, you know. It was still a rebel thing. It was trying to still be accepted, you know, just overall.
And I feel like that in that light, I feel like that commercial set it back.
Mm-hmm. No, yeah. So a common complaint of it was criticized as sexist and reinforcing stereotypes against female older gamers. So kind of like, oh, if you're like over 30, 35 years old, you're gonna like not like this game, even though like maybe like I said, this is thinking about stereotypes, mostly true. But the problem with it is that don't accept it as like 100% fact. That's the issue with it. So
yeah, to me, it just that's a dumb thing. I mean, because everybody knows. Like, I think if you show that to your grandma, 9 out of 10 times, your grandma or your mom or whatever's like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
I mean, there are some that are cool. Like, hey, I love Halloween. I love the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I love all that stuff. But the majority of mothers and grandmas and all that stuff aren't going to be into that.
Yeah, like I said, I think it's more like that's a more fitting critique now in today's world, because like I said, where things have changed a lot. So like a 40-year-old woman is definitely going to be more okay with that than 10 years ago.
Yeah.
But again, it was rated M, and that campaign, if you look at it, it seems it's aimed at high schoolers, and that's probably why it worked for me and you. Well, guess who we need to buy those games? We need our parents.
Yeah.
So that in that sense, it is a weak campaign. But I feel like this is the perfect summary of it. The approval matrix by the New York Magazine placed the campaign in the lowbrow but brilliant quadrant, and I think that's the best way to describe it. Lowbrow, but I think it was good.
Yeah, I will say they didn't mess up with the whole. I feel like it would have been better if they would have, I don't know, maybe talked about the continuation of the story and maybe how he was losing his mind or something. Because I mean, because I remember the main thing in that story is you're building markers and you don't remember any of it, and you are starting to lose your mind. Not necessarily the way that people who are, I guess, the normal population was, but you're still starting to get like, what was it? Not dementia. What were you getting?
Dementia is the right word, but amnesia as well, because you don't remember much.
Yeah.
But PTSD is a very heavy theme in this game.
Yeah,
and that's something I really did from the hallucinations and everything with Isaac regarding Nicole. It didn't hit me till like near the end. This game's actually pretty heavy with PTSD. I don't know how much of it was purposeful, like how heavy it wanted to be. But near the end, I was just thinking like this man clearly needs help, even in a normal world, like without these crazy ass, necromorphs and things like that. Like this kind of shit happens in real life, and it's sad.
Yeah, I mean, clearly he was losing his mind. I mean, in the very beginning, you're in a straitjacket.
And you hallucinate his dead girlfriend.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that too, as far as him not remembering and all that, is he was probably drugged up. I mean, that
is part of it.
Yeah, so in fact, I think the mental illness aspect of the game was actually a point of criticism for some people.
Yes, for some people it was. I will say at least it does help me. This makes me happy. Most people felt like that was an improvement, especially with with regards to the plot of the first one. A lot of people were more into the plot of this game with the story and things like that, with the hallucinations and the guilt, the themes of guilt. A lot, most critics and most gamers appreciated that kind of direction.
And I feel like they had a good control, or I guess a control as far as the way it affected a normal person. Because I remember there was another character, I believe Strauss was his name, who kind of went way more kind of nutty.
He was gone. Yeah, he was far gone.
And I think that was kind of the norm. I think that's the way most normal people who were still alive at that point reacted. Which that insanity and amnesia brings up one of my next most memorable parts of the game is that little eye machine that tries to get the schematics out of your brain.
Yeah. So that. All right. So we'll go into the game right now. Then, real quick before I go with that, average score on Metacritic currently is an 87. Very well received at the time, so a bit better than the first one. Low 9s to mid 9s. A fantastic game. At the time of release, like I said, released in January 2011. At the time of release, only 2 notable games released within that month for it, and that was Little Big Planet 2 and Mass Effect 2. So it still had a little competition, but nowhere near, the fucking ensemble that was Dead Space 1.
Yeah.
And I feel like that was purposeful.
Well, also
because 2011 was a great year for gaming, but
yeah,
those were during the summer and holiday season. This released the first month, so it kind of like, here it is, not much else is happening, buy this game. And I think that's also played a role in why it sold well.
Yeah, because I remember we talked about it earlier. Fucking Skyrim came out 11/11/11, which, I mean, that was so much later in the year, but I mean, there was a lot of heavy hitters, but they were definitely in the latter months of the year, kind of towards like it's the holiday season.
Yeah, so just for anyone who doesn't know, later in this year, like most of these games came out much, much later. Batman Arkham City came out in 2011. Portal 2, Mass Effect 2, Minecraft, believe it or not, was it this year. Uncharted 3, Gears of War 3.
Okay.
The remake of Super Mario 3D Land came out for Nintendo. That was its big thing. Dark Souls came out later that year. L.A. Noire came out in 2011.
Man.
I know. In May. And, oh my god, get ready to feel really old. The Metal Gear Solid HD Collection came out November 2011. The fucking HD Collection.
Yeah. I think, so I actually got that on the PS Vita, and then I think you had it on the PlayStation 3, right?
I got it on PS3, yeah.
Yeah. And that was, I mean, yeah, that was badass. But yeah, that does kind of make me feel a little
I know, a little old.
Yeah.
So like I said, yeah, it was still a great year for games, but the timing of it was, I think, much better as far as competition. Like I said, usually in the spring of any year, that's when you release a game you feel like wouldn't do well for the general public.
Yeah, and so did you see any stats on how the DLC did? I believe it was called Severed.
Yeah. So as far as the DLC, I didn't look too much into, but from like a quick glance from a sentence or two or an article, kind of the par for the course for this game, it was meh. It didn't perform poorly, but it's like, at best average as far as the DLC, and I think that kind of goes into like the biggest criticism of this game. Everyone loved Isaac being a speaking protagonist. A lot of people loved the intro. The set pieces were really lauded. A lot of people liked the story and the plot with regards to especially the mental aspect of it. But every review I was able to look upon, nobody really loved the online.
Yeah. So, yeah, the online, like I said, it was asymmetric, which was purposeful because one team's like, I don't know if you're soldiers, but you're the kind of, I guess, in the same class as maybe a soldier or a combatant, and you have the laser cutter and all these different weapons, which I feel like they didn't expand as much as you think they would with customization and all that stuff, or suits or anything like that. And then the other team was necromorphs, and so with the I think with the human people, you got a set amount of deaths or lives, and then with the Necromorphs, you could just kind of just keep on coming.
No, yeah, definitely. I remember playing that with you a bit, and I did have fun, but only when I played with you. If I tried to play that by myself, I hated that. I did not, like I said, full disclosure, I don't like online games that much, but even with that, I feel like this was definitely one of the weaker online things with me.
Yeah,
it didn't add much to me. Little to nothing for me. And I think a lot of reviewers felt the same way too. They just felt like, and I think this plays a role too in how I rated this game, because I didn't play any online, obviously, when we played it. But during the time, I feel like the online knocked the scores down a peg or two with this game.
Yeah, and it's kind of sad. Yeah, it is fair, but it's kind of sad though, because I feel like it wasn't just a hamstring. Like, let's just throw this out and see how it goes. I feel like there was some thought really put into it, but it definitely didn't hit the mark for me.
It was definitely a point of contention, and especially during this time, I feel like a lot of games were trying that. I feel like it's very similar to BioShock in that sense, where you hear BioShock has a multiplayer. That's fucking weird. It's kind of like that. Like,
yeah, BioShock 2, right?
Space has a multiplayer. That's weird. But they went that direction because, once again, just like the first game, co-op was brought up again during development, but they cut it because they felt like it was too difficult to develop, and it was very expensive to an already, expensive budget. So I feel like this whole time, and this leads up to when we'll talk about Dead Space 3 eventually, real quick. This whole time, co-op was an idea for them. They just didn't implement it till the third one for, a variety of reasons, which we will get into. So with all that being said, we're going to get to the actual game.
Okay.
I think it's great. As far as what we mentioned before, the biggest thing we remember was it's a great blend of action and horror, and having just played it, 100% that is the case.
Yeah, and I think it also, it did a good job of even though the first game wasn't too old, but bringing that nostalgia whenever you go back to the USG Ishimura.
Yes.
That section, I remember, because I got it day one.
Yeah.
And I probably got to that section maybe 5 days later, and just, even though I hadn't even played the first one maybe in a couple of years, it was still fresh in my mind. Like, I could still remember, okay, I remember this part of the game. I remember this happened on the ship. This happened. Like, and that just shows it did a really good job of just, I guess, bringing back those elements or that level of the game, letting you revisit it.
Yeah, like, even though I literally played that game maybe a week before this one, when I got to that chapter, and I was able to kind of go through all these areas of the game, I felt nostalgic, and that's just a good sign. That's just a sign of a good game, where it's like it's not sure. Obviously, the point of it is to make the player feel like, oh, you remember this? It was so cool, wasn't it? But it wasn't just for maybe partly for the sake of it, but there was a storyline purpose for it as well. It just wasn't. You just didn't feel like, oh, we need to do this. Like, there was a reason for it, and it was just satisfying to go back in there.
Yeah, I remember it being really satisfying, and I also enjoyed them. I guess the new scene, it just seemed, or the new set piece, it was so much bigger because it was, I guess, like a space city or something like that.
Oh yeah, the sprawl is a fantastic environment. Like, one of the biggest issues with the first game, or not issues, criticisms of the first game was that, it was very claustrophobic, which again, I'm pretty sure was the point, but, everything felt the same, it was hallways with rooms, and that was it. And again, that's the point of it. I'm sure that was the vibe, but, it just doesn't appeal to some people. Here, they do a great job of variety. There are some hallways, obviously, with rooms, but you have residential areas. You have kind of like, not store settings, Yeah, you have mall settings. One of my favorite chapters is like a school setting, which is fucking terrifying.
Yeah, because it introduces those new enemies, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then the Church of Unitology, which I feel is a fantastic segment of the game. It offers a lot more variety in the game. Zero G is improved upon greatly. In the first game, You kind of just like you're stomping around and you dive towards a new footing, basically. Here, it's actually floaty. You can float around. It just feels more like what you would think with space would be like in Zero G here.
Yeah, so I don't really recall that too much, but I just really remember not having, I guess, an issue with the Zero G sections.
Yeah, Zero G is great.
I enjoyed the fact that they kept them silent, because you are in space, there's no air or whatever to make noise. So yeah, all of a sudden, somebody would just pop out and or a necromorph just pop out and you're getting slashed at.
Yeah, even in the first game, whenever it obviously offered some sound just so you know what's going on, but it was still so quiet, and it
was mostly heavy breathing.
Right? You felt the vast emptiness, which is the point of it. Yeah. You felt like, damn, like this is grand, and I am insignificant to it.
Yeah, I would agree, with that. Like I said, I really enjoyed those sections as well. Man, I just, to me, like the second game built up everything that made the first game great, and then added a little extra kind of oomph to it,
Yeah, like so, and another reason why I really like the comparison of Alien to Aliens is that if people say they like Alien more than Aliens, I would 100% get that. At that point, it's kind of like just a matter of taste. But as far as like an overall appeal to the public, it's Aliens all the way, And I feel like that's what Dead Space 2 is, because of how it balances out action and horror. Like it doesn't forget what it is. It did not lose its identity, but you can 100% tell they worked on the shooting and just the overall pacing of the gameplay with regards to the necromorphs and the weapons, the level design. Like it's very much an action game, but not like in this is Call of Duty. It's not like that at all. It's just that it's just well designed, I feel.
Yeah, and I feel like that's kind of where they lost the plot with the third one. It went totally Michael Bay action, and I mean, like I said, one thing that I enjoyed is the whole fact that if you're playing co-op, one person might hallucinate and see something, and the other person won't. Which I mean, that's kind of a cool little part of it, especially with how the marker affects people. Yeah. But overall, it was just a totally different vibe.
Yeah, keep that in mind for when we get into Dead Space 3. Well, yeah. Another thing I want to bring up real quick, because I know at the time too, this was a point of contention, was the Wayfinder. Mm-hmm. People felt like, if you know where you're going, it's not that scary. I like it a lot because mainly for the point that, this is where I need to go. I'm gonna go the opposite way just to explore, because I hate it in games where I go where I need to go and then I miss out on the extra shit that just because I'm advancing in the story, can't go back.
So, did you find anything in your second playthrough? Like, were you actually doing any exploring, or were you just trying to get through it this time around?
No. Like I said, in the first game, I was doing pretty well in regards to just going through there at my own pace and feeling like I was just playing it through the first time until the last couple of chapters. That's when I was like, just get this over with, just because I felt like it was just padding at that point. I wanted to get it over with. Here, whenever I was exploring, I wanted to. I felt like it was very rewarding. I noticed a couple of new things where I didn't play the first time around. Nothing huge, but more like, oh shit, there's a power node here. I didn't know that because I was just taking that little extra second to look around.
Right, and one thing I feel like the game did a good job compared to the first game is the variety of the suits and the weapons, because the clear winner of the weapons is still obviously the plasma cutter, but there were some badass additions to the game that I actually used. Especially there were some enemies that you definitely did want to hit with another weapon besides the plasma cutter, but it wasn't detrimental if you didn't. but it still added that variety. And then the suits, man, the suits were badass. I remember like that really sporty kind of suit that you got when you beat the game. Then you got the military suit, that chunky ass utilitarian suit was supposed to be like one of the first suits. I mean, all that was, that was cool. That just gives an extra layer. Like, okay, this is its own world or universe with its own history, and you know, especially having the Unitarian suit or whatever, where you are kind of seeing the initial kind of phases of what those spacesuits start to look like.
No, yeah, that's another thing I wrote down here. I very much appreciate the variety in suits, and not only that, but the different perks they give you. Like I said, the suit it gives you when you beat the game, I love that suit so much. But things like stasis, you get more stasis shots, or it takes shorter time to recharge. It gives you bonus for weapons and stuff. Nothing huge. This isn't like revolutionary gameplay, but it's things like you said, like it makes it feel more alive. Like it makes sense for different suits to have different effects on you.
Yeah, for sure. And I just wish they would have brought back the Obsidian suit from the first one, which I think was a PS3 exclusive. But yeah, they were all cool suits, and I'm pretty sure they added DLC for like more kind of, which I mean, I think this is when DLC was starting to kind of, I guess they were doing it for as far as different designs and everything. But I think you could get maybe, if not different suits, different color schemes and all that. And being in high school, I wasn't going to waste money on that, and I really didn't even have the money to spend on a DLC. I never played Severed or the third DLC. So
Same.
It's kind of unfortunate. I would like to go back and maybe give that a go. I know you said it's not really, it's not really applauded as a DLC, but it'd be cool to kind of see, a part of the story I never saw before.
No, definitely. And I know one of the suits was from, I'm pretty sure it was Ignition. If you beat Ignition, you got like a DLC suit for Dead Space 2 if you completed that game, which is like really, it's fucked up. Most people would say like that's the only reason to beat Ignition is just to get that suit in the second game.
It was a fun little, puzzle game. I don't understand why it gets all this hate.
I think it's more like they said, like if you're a fan of the series, it's fine, but if you're not, then it is weak, which I can understand that.
Yeah.
I feel like they did a better job with Kinesis in the first game. I felt like that was more of like a last resort to use that against enemies. Here, I feel like, especially during my first playthrough, I wasted some of my ammo, and I felt like, I really need to use this Kinesis. You use it on necromorphs to use their limbs to shoot at other enemies, or like poles or like rebars, things like that. I think it did a better job, especially with the stasis packs being stackable. That is very useful, and then it recharging over time naturally. Very small differences, but I think great improvements overall.
Yeah, I remember using, whatever kind of, I guess, spear-like object and tossing it at those little necromorph kids or whatever. Yeah, it was definitely, I used a lot more, and I feel like it encouraged the use of
yes, it did.
The Kinesis a lot more. Because I think there's a section early on where maybe you didn't have a lot of ammo, and it gave you enough to maybe kill a couple, and then you would, take their limbs and start throwing them around.
Yeah, like so, it forces you to do it whenever you just have a flashlight. Like you just get out of the straitjacket. You don't have a weapon yet, but you have a flashlight. So but you have Kinesis. So you use that telekinesis, I guess in this case. You use that to fight off necromorphs, and then there's a video later on of like a guy like who's dead, but you see the recording of him going like, "Hey, use Kinesis to like get the limbs off the dead necromorphs and use that against the ones who are still trying to kill you."
Yeah. I remember there was like some kind of audio files or maybe video files where they're interviewing Isaac and some other people who kind of had, I guess, a similar resistance to the marker, but were starting to lose their mind.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, so we'll get to that in a bit. As far as but before that, I feel like another thing I want to give credit to for this game because I think it's still a point of contention today is using children as enemies.
Yeah.
I don't in this it I can understand why sometimes it feels like you just do it for the sake of being just for the sake of it, like, oh, it's shocking, you have to kill children. Here it just makes sense that in this environment, unfortunately, children are going to be affected by this thing with the introduction of the pack, which is I guess like the 8 to 11-year-old range.
Yeah.
Where they just kind of jump on you all at once, and then to the horrifying and haunting introduction of the babies.
The babies and
if for those who don't know, in the school section, when you get into like the classroom setting, I assume it's a mother calling to her child, her baby, and it's a baby necromorph, and the baby necromorph's head is like turned around, and like its belly or its back or belly is like yellow. It's like explosive. It jumps up into the mother's arms. She's like, "Oh yes, yes, my child," and then it blows up and like blood splatters across the walls and the glass. And you're just like, Jesus hell.
Yeah. That another frightening one that wasn't a kid was those birds. Which I don't know how else they happen.
Yes.
Yeah, they're definitely like little creepers. But yeah, so the kids and the babies, yeah, that definitely was a point of contention. Like I remember a lot of games that came out at the time, children weren't, targetable. Like they had to put mods out, like for instance Fallout 3 and
yes.
And I think one of the next games to do something with kids is maybe Dying Light, if I'm not mistaken. They had like little kid zombies that were kind of screamers. But yeah, I mean, it just makes sense. If you're in a city, there's children, there's babies, there's all these things in the city. So unfortunately, some kids they're gonna turn to necromorphs.
Yeah, definitely. And like I said, I wrote down chapter 6, which is the school level. I just wrote that was rough, and not for gameplay. It was tough, obviously, but it was more just like, damn, I'm killing these little kids, I'm killing these babies because they were just kind of caught in the crossfire.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just sad. It makes sense. It was terrifying. Don't get me wrong. Like, especially, like I said, sound design, once again, like the first one, terrific. Play with headphones if you can. It adds so much to the game. What to say? But yeah. And then after that, I think I have here too. It did a better job making the world, the environment feel alive, which again, is a side effect of it being in like a space city. But I like the addition of the side characters, Strauss, and especially Ellie. I like Ellie a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, she kind of became like by the end of it, they were kind of like, maybe they were it kind of hinted that they were going to become a couple, right?
Yeah, in a way, you felt like there was some connection. I don't think it was necessarily a couple, but definitely like they were close. Because Ellie, in a way, for Isaac, is like a substitute for Nicole, and he even mentions in the end, whenever like he tricks her to get into like an escape ship for her to escape and live. He goes, "I couldn't save Nicole, but I can save you." Which again plays into the guilt and PTSD themes.
Yeah, having that survivor's remorse for sure.
Yeah, survivor's guilt for sure, and that's another thing I like too, is that with her, she mentions like, other people are reliability, and I want to be alone. You find audio logs with her and her group. If you and a lot of these times you have to kind of like look around to find them, but you'll find her and her group like dwindling down, getting taken out one by one until like it's her, and it goes, "No, you go and live," and that's why she feels that way. She feels so much guilt because of that, because she lived and all of her group died. And you get to hear that.
And see, I think when I played the game, I didn't really do a lot of looking like that, so I don't even remember that. I mean, it's been so long since I really played it, but yes, that's a interesting insight for sure that I didn't even know of.
Yeah, you said you when she says it and stuff, obviously you feel sorry for her, but like actually hearing it, even if it's just like 30 seconds of them like just killing necromorphs and just a couple sentences, that's all it takes. when you just hear that trauma, you feel it, and then you can just then you can relate to it more. Which I'm sure, and I think that plays into maybe in a way Isaac feels it, and then that even more reason for him to go, I need to save this woman. And then on top of that, I need to save her not only because of this trauma, but because I couldn't save my girl, so I need to save her.
Yeah.
He can't have another death on his hand. Because another thing too is in the opening, it's a video of him talking to Nicole, and one of the big things there is like, oh, thank you for helping me stick with this, and that's like repeated over and over, and it's because Isaac feels like, oh, I made her stick with this job, and because of that, she's dead.
Now, one part that I also thought was interesting is the addition of more human elements in the game, because there are sections where you're, for whatever reason, with multiple people in a group, and I felt like during those times the game did a good job of like, because me, I'd be like, oh, okay, I'm safe. There's a shit ton of people here. I'll be good. And the game did a good job of flipping the script, and like something would happen, all of a sudden the lights would go out and they'd come back on, and every single person was wiped out, and you're like, oh, shit.
Yeah, so there were a couple sections where you were with Strauss and Ellie, but like those were fleeting. We felt like, oh, thank God I'm with them, and then like 30 seconds later, all right, go do your own thing. And you're like, no, I want to stay with these people. I don't want this. And then what you just mentioned, there's like hallucinations. Where like there was one specifically, I can't remember the exact moment in the game where like he's hallucinating something with like people, and then all of a sudden, because this happens before and nothing happens, but then when it goes back to like real life, it's a fucking necromorph, and then the next thing you know, I'm like pressing E real quick, like, oh fuck, I don't want to die. I'm low on health. I was not ready for this. And I think that's a great thing what it does with this PTSD. A lot of times, most of the time it's jump scares, but then that once in a while we're like, oh shit, this is an actual enemy. I need to fight this thing off.
Yeah, because wasn't the actual end? Spoilers. I guess the last enemy was a gigantic hallucination.
Yeah. So the final boss fight, he gets to the marker, which they reverse engineered from like taking his memories and shit, and to keep him from going insane and committing suicide, they drug him so he doesn't remember. He basically has to fight Nicole, which it kind of tricks you into believing like it's his guilt. It's a personification of his guilt, but it's the marker trying to manipulate him and using that against him. So he had to fight Nicole in his mind because the marker, in order, the saying, make us whole again.
Mm-hmm.
That's basically just because the marker, in order to, like, I guess, be at its full power, needs to absorb the mind of its maker.
Okay, so
that's why it wants to kill Isaac, because once Isaac is dead, it can absorb his mind, then it can do all the things it wants to do.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. And oh, excuse me.
Are you good?
But yeah, so man, that was weird. That was just a random.
It happens.
Yes, that was the best of us. So yeah, I just remember seeing that there was a lot more hallucinations, because I guess at this point, whatever meds he had are starting to wear off, and kind of the discovery that you were helping make all these synthetic markers, because I don't know if you know, or if the game touches on it. So the marker, the big thing is it does have some kind of like a signal coming out of it, and that signal is actually how to make more markers. So that's how it reproduces,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Just before you get into that, yeah, you brought that up. To normal people, it's just like noise. It's whispering. To people who are intelligent, and Strauss was an engineer. Isaac is an engineer, so like to highly intelligent people, they actually can hear the instructions, and that's why they go insane, but not in like full on like I'm gonna kill everyone and shoot my own brains out. They can actually take those directions and make markers, which is why Strauss was important, which is why Isaac was important for making markers.
Yeah, but I feel like Isaac, he seemed even more resistant to the the marker. I mean, obviously he was affected a bunch,
Mm-hmm.
but he does seem a lot more resistant. I mean, especially if you compare him to Strauss, I mean, he is in way better shape.
I think that's probably due to the willpower as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like just how strong the person can resist it. Like obviously, you know, there's a human limit, but he's obviously the protagonist, so in a way that's just gonna help him as well. But like, you know, I guess in universe and lore wise, he's just has a stronger will, and that's why he's able to fight off total insanity and total just manipulation to the marker.
Yeah, I could see that for sure. I mean, like I said, that was one of the themes I really enjoy that they added in the game, is the fact that you can see that this has affected him, and he's not just some sort of superhero, some kind of person with no original thoughts or feelings. Because, you know, like in the first one, he was so quiet.
Mm-hmm.
It was kind of cool that they showed, this guy is deeply troubled now.
Exactly. One of the biggest things was that I think it was a developer who said if we made Isaac mute again for the sequel, it would not only say that the events of the game are not noteworthy, but that they're just so insignificant. We had to make him affected by it. And again, having replayed it, and it didn't, like I said, didn't really hit me till near the end. But like, I felt really bad for Isaac. Like, I think it's another thing too you don't realize when you were our age at the time in high school, but it's pretty dark, the trauma he has and the guilt and things like that. Like, it's sad. And I think that and you can really sympathize and empathize with what he's feeling.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely made him feel a lot more human this go around.
Mm-hmm. Like exactly. He becomes such he was cool in the first one just because you were basically him, and here though he's his own character, and you just go like, you just think, damn, this poor bastard, like he's really been through the gauntlet.
So another thing too is, I mean, as far as the third one goes, it does kind of continue that kind of thing, that theme that Isaac is extremely broken.
Yeah. So before we go to that, to summarize the whole thing, I absolutely love this game. I beat it relatively quick, 9 hours. But I wanted more. It flew by, but I didn't feel like it was too short. I didn't feel like it dragged at all. The main criticism I would have is that I won't fault the game for this because this is based on memory.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the weapon, the contact beam? I remember that being super strong against the final boss. So like, the final boss is like hallucination Nicole. You have to shoot her so many times before the marker pops up, and then you have to shoot that.
Mm-hmm.
If you use the contact beam, just like regular, you can use that once against Nicole. She'll disappear, and then you shoot the marker, and then you do that 3 times, and then the boss fight is over. Like, I literally did the final boss in 30 seconds just based on that memory.
Damn.
Yeah, so like it was very anticlimactic, but yeah. I'm sure what you're gonna say is, at the time, if you don't know that, that's a very difficult boss fight.
I did not know that.
Yes.
I remember dying multiple times, and it being just such a pain in the ass, that final boss fight. Yeah,
it's a pain. I remember that too. It was such a pain in the ass, but I remember like I played this like 3 or 4 times too at the time when it first came out. I just remember one of those times looking up or just finding on my own that if you use a contact beam, it's super fucking easy. Lo and behold, I use it, and yeah, like I'm not joking, like maybe 30 to 45 seconds, and it's done. I beat it. It was like, that's not really the game's fault. It was more like I remember,
Yeah, but I mean, it kind of is because I don't know if maybe they're going.
Maybe that's bad design. I don't know.
Yeah, that is fucking. Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's kind of like, that's my main thing about it, and especially since it's the final boss and it's like supposed to be like super climatic, like you're fighting Nicole in your own mind. It did kind of leave me on a downer, but I have to kind of keep into consideration that at the time I would not know this, but it is also part of the game, so which is why I'm kind of hesitant to give it a perfect 10 out of 10, but at the very least I'd give it a 9.5 out of 10. It is I feel like a must play especially if you love horror games. You have to play this game.
Yeah, in fact, I was just talking to one of my old buddies, and he told me, because I told him, hey, we're about to record a podcast. And he goes, oh, what about? And I told him Dead Space. He goes, I never played that series. I was like, what? Because we're the same age.
Mm-hmm.
He goes, yeah, I just never played it. So I don't know. Hopefully he gives us a listen and he decides to buy the game or whatever.
Yeah, like for anyone who listens to this, whether you're a super fan of the series or you've heard of it but never played it, by all means, either give it another shot or please play it because it is 100% worth it. Like I said, if you just like horror in general, this is, especially during this era, it is the highlight of this era in regards to horror. Like I said,
hold on. I will say the exclusion to that is if you do not like horror, then you might have to give this game a pass.
But definitely, yeah. I mean, because especially the first one. The first one is very, very harsh. At least this one gives you time to breathe. The first one, absolutely nothing. You are just always on guard. Here, you kind of feel like, okay, I can catch my breath. It's all good.
Yeah.
So like I said, even though it sold for $1 million, in the end, in the grand scheme of things, it, like I said, barely made its money back. 2 made a few million. And I bring that up because, so for Dead Space 3, you mentioned like the whole co-op, like the other guy will see things that you don't see, and you kind of like maybe you'll fight amongst each other, and that's supposed to like I guess harbor tension. Like that. So originally for Dead Space 3, the idea was for the second player to be like Shadow Isaac, an alter ego of Isaac.
Huh.
And you wouldn't know that until the end, where the reveal, and this is a direct quote, by the way, all of this, what I'm about to say about Dead Space 3 from here on out, just from here on to the end. Special shout out to Gamers, GVMERS. They have a fantastic channel who specialize in like the rise and fall of like defunct studios. Basically said, yeah, you would, and the player wouldn't know you were playing a Shadow Isaac until near the end, and the reveal would be like Fight Club-esque, where you were like fighting the other person, and then it's like revealed that it was just you the whole time. It was just Isaac.
Yeah, I feel like I would have liked that more than what
exactly.
It
like it would have delved more into the whole mental aspect of it, kind of like the second one. EA did not like that, and I do not want to just go into the whole circle jerk of EA bad, but this is what was reported, so this is just what I'm going off of. EA did not like that idea, and they pushed for a more action game. That is what they wanted, and due to the underperformance of the past games, this Visceral Games felt like it couldn't really fight for its ideas. Like, oh shit, like we have no ground to stand on.
Hey man, by all means, circle jerk ahead.
I know, like it sounds cool. Right? Like that sounds more like, oh, I would love to do that. But at the same time, too, from a business standpoint, from a strictly business standpoint, I can see where they were coming from because as a franchise selling, it was disappointing.
Yeah, but I feel like the third one it was even more. Like I'm looking at it here, and it's saying it sold like in the first month like 600 and something thousand, like no, close to 700,000 in the first month.
Yes, and then, which is crazy because the second game sold 2 million the first week. The target audience for the third game was 5 million.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So with all that, you can kind of think like you don't have to agree with it, but you can go like, shit, no wonder they shut it down.
Yeah, and I mean, because I feel like, we played enough of it so that you got the general kind of feel and vibe of the game, and I mean,
it was super disappointing. Yeah, it was not scary.
That's the whole thing. But I feel like part of that. I mean, do you think they could have made it a lot more scary? I mean, because I feel like that we're each other's relief, right? Like we're talking the whole time. I don't know if there's any sections where maybe it shuts the mic off, like if we get separated or something. But I mean, the whole time it was just, hey, I'm hanging out, chilling with my best friend, and yeah, there's some kind of things that maybe are a little creepy, but a majority of it was, I mean, it was pretty okay. I mean, it wasn't scary at all.
Yeah, I think in the end, maybe it wouldn't have made a difference as far as like the horror aspect goes, but maybe that twist of second player being like just an amalgamation of Isaac's mind would have helped the replayability, like kind of like rewatching a movie like Fight Club or what's it called? That M. Night Shyamalan movie. Just anything with like a huge twist where you go like, oh shit, I want to watch this again just to kind of like pick up all the hints. I think it would have helped with that, even if it wasn't super scary, and it would have been able to appreciate the story more. Yeah, I feel like it was just kind of already on that path anyway, regardless of what EA would have wanted, which is kind of why I just won't subscribe to the whole like EA ruined it. They definitely played a role. Don't get me fucking wrong. They played a role, but that was more like a symptom of the overall thing, not the cause of its death.
I mean, another thing I'm seeing here too is it had a DLC for this as well. I don't know. I'm reading about it, and the first DLC kind of seemed more interesting than this one. And I will say, because I have beat the whole third game, the ending was kind of sucked. So this looks like they're trying to do something else or rectify the ending to some extent, because it's saying here that you get to play as Isaac and Carver in the DLC. So it seems like maybe they try to resolve it in some way.
I know the ending was open-ended. I've seen that. It was a while back, so I don't know the whole thing. But as far as that goes, given all the disappointing, not only the sales, but the reception as well, which the crazy thing about this game is that, not the crazy thing, but what helped this game is that the critical reception helped its sales.
Yeah,
that was a big part of it. Here, the reception was meh at best, so it didn't help with the sales and just added on more into the disappointing, the financial aspect of it. And then another thing was that developers have come out and said, this is all very much rough outlines, nothing in stone. But when they talked about Dead Space before, that was supposed to be an open world non-linear game. Like it was supposed to be multiple planets, so which allowed for much different environments, different settings, and like kind of in between, you could like explore abandoned spaceships to like loot and pick up all these crazy things. And that one of the big ideas was to play as Ellie during this game. Like she was the main protagonist during this game.
Okay, yeah. I mean, if they did it right, I mean, it seems like that's such a big
that sounds really cool.
chance. It seems like there's a big chance of them doing it wrong. I don't know, but what I'm looking at here as far as the critical response, man, Game Informer gave it a 9.75 out of 10, saying that, it says Dead Space 3 evolves the winning formula into a title not only befitting of the fantastic series, but also one of the best games of this generation.
I feel like that was like a
paid off.
No, I won't go that far, but that was like that was an exception.
Yeah, well, and then here's Polygon. Polygon gave the game a 9.5 out of 10, saying Visceral hasn't just avoided screwing up its game with co-op, has made it feel natural and at home, and has done it without impacting the single-player experience in any negative way. That alone would be enough to make Dead Space 3 an achievement, but the new crafting system is bigger, more open level structure, join co-op to make Dead Space 3 one of the best action games in years. And I guess if you are looking at it from a standalone segment, I mean, I guess it is kind of a good action game, but it's not Dead Space.
That's so funny though, because when you mentioned the crafting system, I remember bringing this up during the game. I hated it. I did not like the crafting system at all. In the first two games, you just get power nodes and very simple. Like if you want to upgrade your weapons, here use these things to like get your reload up, your speed up, your damage up, your alt fire up, and that's it. Here, I felt like they try to do this weird RPG thing, but they didn't implement it well at all, and it just felt confusing. I'm like, and in the end, I just went, I'm just not gonna do it. And from what I was reading, a lot of people felt the same way.
And see, the most, like if you look at aggregate scores or kind of the average or whatever, it seems like a lot of publications gave it a 7 to an 8, with there being two scores above a 9. Like I said, there's a 9.75 and a 9.5, and the lower score being from videogamer.com, which gave it a 5 out of 10.
Yeah, it's like average.
I mean, to me, 5 out of 10 is horrible. I mean, I don't see myself going out to buy a 5 out of 10 game, especially at that age. And they said that Dead Space 3 is a letdown because it's not a very good action game and a really substandard horror game. It is devoid of ideas, hung up on laborious combat, and obsessed with making even the exciting seem boring. In truth, it's a bit of a shocker.
Ugh, like I said, I went into the game when we played it already with a mindset that's disappointing, so I don't take my, opinion as gospel, but I kind of feel the same way. Like, I honestly don't remember much as far as the story and as far as the shooting. I felt no tension other than like, I don't want to die. That's it. Like, another thing I want to bring up is that I know one of my complaints to the first game was I don't know much about Unitology because it only kind of brought it up near the end.
Mm-hmm.
And the second game, it really fleshed it out. Like, yeah, I feel like it directly addressed that complaint. Like that whole chapter 4 and 5, I want to say. Mm-hmm. Like when you're in Unitology, obviously you go into like the recruiting, the mythology of like how they go after people. Like I remember one text log was like, we're not going to recruit this person because they're not like susceptible enough to it. Like, okay. I feel like that was really cool. And then it goes into like the whole like museum aspect, like the history, like here's this and this and this. This is why we do this and this and this. Like it did everything I would have wanted it to do. And like it makes sense, like, of course it couldn't do this in the first game because this was like near the end. It can't just drop this all on you at once. But I'm really glad it did it in the second game. Like really gave their reasoning for why they think this way. Like they're still a crazy cult, don't get me wrong. But at least now you're like, okay, I get it. I disagree, but I can understand where it's coming from. And in the third game, I kind of felt like it didn't do much for that. It just went like, yeah, they're still crazy. Who cares?
Yeah, I feel like it was kind of cool in the way that you're on a older ship, so it's kind of a little bit of the older history of that universe. But at the end of the day, towards the end, like one of the main bosses, one of the main bosses is kind of like a moon planet, and it does flesh out the more extraterrestrial involvement with the markers.
Oh, okay.
But it's definitely in the latter parts of the game. So
okay, yeah, we haven't gotten there yet.
Yeah, we're not anywhere near from what I remember. But I will say I do remember parts of it being laborious as far as playing it and like and just being like, let's get past this part. Let's see what's going on. But I wouldn't agree with the 5 out of 10. I wouldn't agree with the 5 out of 10.
So what would you give it then?
Maybe a 7.5.
Okay, so like it's fine.
Yeah, I mean it's I can justify buying a 7.5 compared to a 5 out of 10, which I have done. Well, I think as I talked about with Hayes, I have bought some games that were really subpar, but I mean they were still kind of fun to play. Especially like you said, you kind of expected to feel a certain kind of way even before you played because of all of the news and criticism was out on this game beforehand.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, just once I heard of co-op, my initial reaction was, okay, I mean, like this can still be cool. But then once I saw gameplay of it, I'm like, this is like not exactly right, obviously. But I got the vibe like Gears of War 3 or like Army of 2. Like it's just action. It's not horror,
Yeah.
And so, like I said, it was disappointing all around. Not only reception but sales. And then we talked about this before off the podcast, but with Amy Henning, a writer,
Henning,
I'm sorry, yeah, who was a big part of the Uncharted series. She left to work with Visceral Games on a Star Wars single player game, and this was a huge thing. I remember this just being like, oh my god, this is finally like this is what we want. We're tired of this online shit. And unfortunately though, and even though like I remember this coming out of nowhere, because at the time all we heard was it's progressing, but in October 2017 EA announced that it was shutting down Visceral, and it just later came out that it was kind of just stuck in developmental hell. Like its scope it just greatly outweighed what the staff could do. EA wanted more, and this is supposed to be original story. And I mention that because EA wanted more iconic characters from Star Wars, which would impede, I guess, on what Visceral and Amy Hennig wanted to do with the original story. And then, but not only that, but there was like a lot of friction apparently between Hennig and other staff in Visceral. So it was just this perfect cocktail of just shit going on, and then combine that with the disappointing sales of Dead Space, and EA felt like, you know what, we're just gonna shut it down.
Right. Yeah. I remember being really disappointed in hearing that because I'm actually a bigger fan of the Star Wars video games than I am the actual films.
Yeah. So like, just get us out of the way. I'm a huge Star Wars fan. Jerry's more of like a casual fan. He's like he just said, loves the Star Wars games, and I love Star Wars games too, the older ones at least. But as far as like lore and things like that, that's definitely more of my bag.
Yeah, even the original trilogy, I don't know, to each their own. But yeah, so that was I was kind of interested hearing that Amy Hennig was part of Visceral's team, because I do remember, them being in the middle of Far Cry 4's Uncharted 4's development, and then her leaving just in the middle of it. And
that was a huge thing, which I know when we'll talk about eventually, it may have led to like way different, I guess, story beats in the fourth game than would have happened with her at the helm.
Yeah, but she didn't really have anything to do with Dead Space, though.
No, this is more like that. This was more like just the studio itself's background, which led to its eventual death. That's what this is, because I felt like that was very important, because with the studio dying, Dead Space died with it, you know?
Yeah, I remember I was like hoping so hard that there would be like a PS4 version of Dead Space, or a continuation of the story, but then at the same time I was kind of like, ugh, Dead Space 3 just it was not it. And EA at that time had been building up a reputation for so long of shutting down studios who did not perform, at least numerically.
Well, I think I saw too that with regards to like upgrading your weapons, you could use microtransactions to just buy like not the parts, but like certain currency to get those parts.
Ugh.
Which exactly, like, oh, that is awful. Like hearing that now, and when you're already expecting that from EA, so like back then, we'd be like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's only gotten worse, unfortunately. It's crazy now that we kind of like talk, oh yeah, did you hear, so and so's not going to do this really scummy thing, and everybody's like, oh yeah, hell yeah. And it's like, I remember the days on PS2, there were no DLC, that you got what you got. So they really packed a game full of characters and levels and whatever else, and extra content and replayability. Whereas now you're paying for that.
It's so funny that people will rejoice over the fact like they're not going to do this scummy thing. Huzzah! Give them points. And it's like, no, that should just be expected,
Yeah, but I mean, as long as people keep on buying it, I mean, it's going to keep on happening.
Like give them shit for that, but also, I mean, if people are buying it, I can't, fully blame them for that, Like if people weren't buying it, they still kept doing that, then they could go like, well, fuck you guys, there's no point to this. But if they're making money off of it, then shit, like that sucks, and fuck you still. But I mean, hey.
So yeah, I have bought, definitely some scummy microtransactions before, just because they look cool or whatever. But now I feel like it's kind of getting out of control, with like some skins for Call of Duty being like $20.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's really all. I mean, can you think of anything else for the Dead Space series?
Not really. I mean, besides that, like I said, the first two games phenomenal, and then the third one was disappointing. Hearing about it, playing it with you, it's about what I would have expected if I did play it at the time. To them working on that Star Wars game and then getting shut down. Yeah, that's about it. about all I could really say about it. Like I said, the biggest thing, having done the research on this, was kind of just seeing like, damn, like since the beginning, it was already like kind of doomed, just based on its sales.
So with that being said, though, I mean, because you kind of knew what to expect going in, what if me and you bought this game day one and were playing it? How much different do you think your feelings would be towards the game? If
like today?
Like let's say we bought it day one, the day it came out, and started playing it together. And you didn't know yet. You didn't know it was going to be a shit game.
Dead Space 3.
Yeah.
Like even with hearing all the stuff about it.
Well, like let's say it was kind of more fresh.
Oh, like just went in kind of blind.
Yeah.
I'd still be disappointed because, like I said, we talked about it, and you mentioned to me before, would you consider Dead Space to be a horror game? And I would say barely, just barely it meets the mark for a horror game. It's just not that scary. It's still fun, but I'd rather play like, hell, fucking even Kane Lynch with you. I'd rather play Gears of War with you. I'd rather play Star Wars Battlefront with you, not Dead Space with you, Yeah,
I would agree. I would agree right there.
It's fun. That. I had a blast. Don't get me wrong, but it's more of like, if I was playing on my own, I'd be very disappointed,
Yeah. Well, I mean, I really say that's really all I have for it.
Mm-hmm. So, and with all that, we brought it up in the first one, and now for me though, it hits even harder here. Because in the end of that video, it's like I said, GVMERS gamers, go get them a watch. They're awesome.
For sure.
They mentioned like, hey, on the horizon, this franchise just seems dead, and over a year, just a little over a year later, we get the announcement that they're remaking the first one. And I was like, I really need to get a PS5 now. I am just hoping this remake allows for this franchise to just rise like a phoenix, and not only do old fans rejoice and be like, yes, this is what I remember, and it's even better now due to modern gameplay and modern graphics, but that younger gamers, new make new fans, and they will go like, holy shit, this is amazing, and you can just go like, yes, like buy the ship, support this series because we want more of it. Like I hope it leads to like something like Destroy All Humans, where you remake the first game, it does well enough, and you go, all right, let's do the second one. I want them to remake the second one, and then that sells well, and then they'll go, and EA will go, you know what, there's still a market for this. Maybe not remake the third one, but do a Dead Space 4. Maybe just make Dead Space a soft reboot, where you can play as Ellie, especially nowadays where a female protagonist. I'm not just saying this just because like, oh, it's a female protagonist, just for the sake of it. Like, I like Ellie. I would love to play as her, but it's just a bonus that nowadays, like, yes, a female protagonist. This is what's popular,
Yeah, it really is.
Like it just works on all fronts, and you go like, all right, you can do something new with it. You can still acknowledge the third one, but not like, it happened, but whatever. Here's Ellie, and this is what she's doing now. And you can, reference the old franchise.
Yeah, I think maybe some kind of a future kind of maybe what happened after Isaac Clarke, like you were saying. I think that would be cool. Yeah, I'm excited, man. I'm definitely getting the if they have a special edition, I might be getting that. It would be cool to have an Isaac Clarke mask somewhere in the house. But yeah, I'm excited for it.
Me too. Especially since you have the PS5, I'll definitely want to hear what you say about it, and I'll fucking watch you play that game. Since no spoilers, I know what's gonna happen just to see the differences and stuff.
For sure. So did they say they're doing a PS5 and a PS4 kind of a remake for it?
I know it's the PS5. I have no idea if it's gonna be like
I would think so, because there's so many people that don't have a PS5, unfortunately.
Let me see. No, exclusively for PS5, Xbox Series XS, and PC. No PS4, no Xbox One.
Yeah, like I said, man, hop on Twitter. They got plenty of people who send out alerts, and hopefully, because it's not coming out until 2022, right?
Not 2022. Oh shit, no, you're right. Oh, fuck, I forgot what year it was. Yeah, not till like summer next year.
Okay, yeah. So hopefully by that
Fucking
time you should
hell.
definitely have one.
It's not even. I don't even know years anymore. Not until COVID's over. At this point, it's just COVID time.
Yeah, COVID time.
That's it. I don't know. The years, especially with the surgery, man. It's just like, it's all I know is like surgery, COVID, and then until I go back to work, it's just all one day.
Well,
So like,
shit.
yeah, this is a lot to go over, but I like to think like we not only went over this the entire most of the entire franchise, the first game, and the second one with a little bit of the third one. It's just a lot to talk about, and then especially too with our personal feelings about it. And like I said, before we actually released videos on like podcast episodes of this, one of the first games we brought up was Dead Space, and then
Yeah.
lo and behold, maybe like a month before we actually released our first episode, they announced that hey, we're remaking it, and we're like, oh shit, that's awesome. We're so happy.
Hell yeah. But yeah, so yeah, thank you
I
guys
guess,
for listening.
yeah, we really hope you've at least learned something about it. We hope like you can tell that, we really love this game, even with their, our criticisms of it, especially with the third one.
Yeah.
We didn't want it to die. Obviously, we wanted this to keep going. And we're super fucking stoked with the remake. Like I said, that was a pretty much a per answer for us.
Yeah, it really was. And it just came out of nowhere too. So that was like the cool thing about it.
Yeah, no indication. Like like you heard rumors here and there, but no more than like the average, defunct studio.
Yes, yes.
So
But
we're excited for it. We really hope it does well, and we're definitely gonna be checking it out when it comes out.
yeah, we'll definitely have an episode out when it does.
But like, yeah, before we go on, I guess overall, your final notes on this series?
My final notes, I mean, pretty much what we said in the beginning, man. Dead Space 2, a classic. I couldn't recommend it more. I feel like it really perfected a lot of things that I felt were maybe a little weak on the first game, which the first game is still awesome. But this is definitely the game. Whenever I think of Dead Space, I think of Dead Space 2. I don't think of, I really don't think of Dead Space 3. But I figured we could just give it a play because, I mean, it's something we could do together. And especially now with COVID and everything and, everybody being busy, we could, just kind of still hang out and enjoy something. I mean, even though it's not the best one, still, enjoy each other's company.
No, yeah, definitely. And I know it's kind of a cliche now when we say something like it's not a terrible game, it's just a terrible so and so game. In this case, a Dead Space game. It's still a disappointing game. Don't get me wrong. It's not terrible though. It's just that it's not what I go to Dead Space for. But even with that, I still have it still has a special a special place in my heart. It still has a special place in my heart. I think what people feel for Resident Evil, this is what Dead Space is to me. This is my horror franchise, and so to see it finally being revised potentially, I'm super excited for it. And I really hope it does well. Especially being a remake, I'd like to think it's not going to be that expensive to do. God, I hope not, and that they know how to market it right. Like they've learned from their mistakes from development and marketing. They know what to do, and they can kind of just bank on the fact that hey, people know what this game is, and if we market it right, even new players will know that hey, this seems exciting. I can get into this. Yeah, July. I think it's July. Yeah, July can't come soon enough. It looks beautiful. I hope it plays just as well. Yeah, may arise from the ashes and be reborn.
For sure. Well, thank you guys for listening. It's been a blast. Hopefully we're getting a couple more listeners here. And man, it was good talking to you. I love you. It was good seeing you yesterday. And shoot, I'll talk to you later.
Yeah, thank you to whoever's listening. Thank you for the support. Please stick with us. We love talking to each other. We love talking about games, and whatever the future brings, we hope you're with us. So take care of y'all and be safe. See ya.
See ya.
Bye.